The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike, here with Sam. Sam, how you doing?
Mike, breaking news for the Suns 10 minutes before we hit the record button. The Suns, I'm good, by the way. Thank you for asking. The Suns added a two-way player, Udoka Azubuike. Let's go. What a way to start off the month of August.
Another center.
They
have 4 now? 5?
I think
they have a lot.
I think you could say 5, depending on what you consider Bol to be. I think Bol is questionable. I think Chimezie Metu is questionable. But by some accounts, this is the Suns' 5th center. Of course, the two-way spots don't really count. And, I think we're kind of just starting off this episode with the signing of Udoka Azubuike as a little bit of a joke. I don't know how much you're expecting him to really bring.
It's a two-way player
to the on-court product, but it was funny. It was funny that this literally
August
happened.
Now. Well, it's about to be August at the very least. So this is the kind of news we get this kind of time of year. But yeah, Udoka Azubuike, he was signed to the Suns today. Agent, by the way, Mark Bartelstein. I think I got to bring that up every time I notice it, just because of the relation there. And yeah, I mean, there's not a lot to analyze with him. He hasn't played a ton in the NBA. I will say he shot 81.9% from the field last year.
82% from the field. You can't get better than that. Almost
72 shots total. 61 of those 72 within 5 feet of the rim. So it kind of gives you an idea of what kind of player he is right there. Doesn't do anything but shoot at the rim, but finishes well at the rim. A big, huge guy. Takes up a lot of space with his body and can shoot at the rim. That's what we're looking at, right?
Also a solid 35% from the free throw line. Putting him right in line with is this the Bismack Biyombo replacement?
Is Biz signed yet? He's not, right?
Yeah, I don't think he is.
Isn't that interesting?
That was one of the things we mentioned recently, actually. This might have been on the Patreon episode last week, but if Metu goes into the season as the third string center, I think the loss of Biz will be felt more than Suns fans expect. Biz was awesome. And so I'm not serious when I say that Azubuike is the Biz replacement, because if he's the Biz replacement, that means he's really awesome and is like playing important minutes for this team, which, again, two-way contract we're not expecting.
Right.
Similar in terms of free throw percentage, though. Similar in terms of...
7 for 20.
Yeah.
I mean, 7 for 20 total.
51%.
Which is bad. I'm not saying it's 51%
not bad, for his career.
Yeah.
But hey, it's a young player.
Yeah.
In theory, he protects the rim. He's long, like the rest of our roster. It's something. And
Ayton hasn't played every game in a season yet, so there will be time where there are bigs that miss games. Eubanks could miss games. These guys could potentially not play. So you need bodies to play, and he's someone who could potentially play. And the Suns clearly saw something in him, and I'm interested to see what that is. I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert here on Udoka, but I'm excited to see him play.
Listed at 280 pounds, I'm just
he's
realizing
huge.
now, which is massive. That is, I think that's a solid 25 pounds heavier than DeAndre Ayton, probably.
Yeah, that's
and
crazy.
I think would easily be the heaviest on our roster.
Yeah, it has to be. Who would be close? I mean, it would probably be... Ayton would probably be the closest, and Ish Wainwright, I don't know. Ish Wainwright's probably, 260 or something?
Who in the NBA is even close to that? Joel Embiid is listed at 280 pounds. I'm looking now.
Yeah.
To give you an idea. You go. That's the idea of the size that we're talking about here.
Well, I'm excited to watch him play. I didn't have a lot prepared. This, like you said, it happened 10 minutes before this podcast, but yeah, we'll get to see him play at least a little bit. There's no G League team, so you can't really see him on the G League team. Imagine... Last year, these guys spent a lot, the G League guys, the Suns were very injured last year, but the G League guys spent a lot of time with the team, even though the Suns can send them to other teams, G League teams, to get time to play and get minutes in that league. they spend most of their time with the Suns, and I'm interested to see if that's something that ends up happening this year. Obviously, a G League team coming as early as next season. Anything else on that?
No, 5 minutes is more than enough on that. It was just funny when the news broke.
I do have some stuff I want to talk to you about. This time of year, there's not going to be a ton of breaking news or anything, although that was breaking news. There was an article written by Zach Lowe. And Zach Lowe kind of blesses each team with at least one article each year. And this is a guy who does a ton of work and a ton of research into a team, and then sometimes writes more about the more interesting teams. The Suns probably got a few from him last year, for example. And this was, I think, the first time that there seemed to be some level of in-depth analysis by ESPN or any major sports news publication, if you will, about the fit between Bradley Beal and the Suns and what the Suns could potentially look like next year. And I thought it was really good. I know you read it too. I'm interested to know what you thought of it.
Yeah, first of all, I appreciate when Zach Lowe, he's still so much in his element when he writes. He's a jack of all trades at this point in his career. Obviously, he produces a ton of video/TV content for ESPN as well because you kind of have to. But it's nice to get long-form articles about the Suns like this because you just don't see as many of them anymore, at least not good ones. Whereas you can have pundits, dozens of pundits for ESPN or Fox Sports or maybe radio content as well, or podcast guys like us giving instant reaction to a transaction throughout the summer and kind of just firing off hot takes, but really being able to sit down and thoroughly research your topic and put pen to paper, so to speak, I think is really valuable when you get content like this. So yeah, for my initial thing is just that Lowe proving that his absolute baseline for what he can give you during the summer is so much higher than what the rest of the industry is doing, frankly.
I would say there were two main topics of this article. The first being Bradley Beal, and I think it started with Beal. It kind of circled back around to Beal. And the other one was DeAndre Ayton. And I thought that was the right approach to what this team is facing this season. Beal being the biggest storyline as far as the addition, and DeAndre Ayton being the biggest storyline as far as like the holdover from the previous team, especially because, as he noted in the article, the only player left with Devin Booker that was on the NBA Finals team for the Phoenix Suns, so a longtime player on the Suns, the second longest tenured player on the Phoenix Suns at this point. And I thought the Beal stuff, it was all very interesting. Let's start with the Beal stuff first. Obviously talked about Beal's fit. Talked a lot about Bradley Beal on the ball and a lot about Bradley Beal off the ball. But the thing I think that stuck out to me, and this is something I wanted to bring up to you, because I'm curious about it. There's a lot of good things about having Kevin Young still with the Suns from last year, understanding what worked well last year, understanding Devin Booker, there for the beginning of Kevin Durant, obviously this, but more than anything else, this is a pretty brand new team. And what I'm curious about, because Zach Lowe talked about using Bradley Beal as a screener, and Bradley Beal will be the smallest player on the Suns, most likely in the starting lineup and in most of the lineups that he's in. And the thing about using guards as screeners is that I've been begging for that. And so have you, for a long time for this team.
And we've seen
using smaller guys as screeners, but
we see it
but
sometimes.
They don't do it very much. They didn't do it last year very much. They did it slightly more during the playoffs, mostly because there were times where players like Nikola Jokic were hidden on guards, like, if you can call him a guard, Okogie.
Okogie, sure.
And then they would bring Okogie up to screen because Jokic was involved in there. But, when Zach Lowe is talking about this, he's talking about the smallest defender being hidden on Bradley Beal. We talked about using Landry Shamet as a screener. Barely ever happened.
It happens. It happened a few times. It happens sometimes.
Very, very, very rarely as far as on-ball screens when it comes to those guys.
I'd be curious just to say, because the stat here specifically that Lowe is pointing out, he said that Beal set seven ball screens per 100 possessions for the Wizards last year. He said that was by far a career high. I would be itching to get my hands on that synergy data. This is my yearly begging for synergy access section of the pod. To know what certain guys on the Suns average there. Yes, I think Shamet obviously would be much less than that, but we saw it with Shamet a little bit. We saw it between Chris Paul and Devin Booker sometimes. Maybe not as much as you would have wanted.
Mostly in double drag, I would say.
Double drag, pistol actions,
rarely
handoffs.
with anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it wasn't the most inventive stuff. I don't know, but we saw it.
Do you think they'll use him more? Because I think it's an interesting thing to point out, and because I actually agree, and it's something, like I said, we've been talking about for a while. 7 per 100 is you probably hear that and think that's not very much, but it's kind of a lot for a guard because it's specifically on ball screens, so essentially just running up and screening for the ball handler. And the thing about the Suns is they have a 7-foot ball handler in Kevin Durant. So when you use smaller guys to screen for him, you put them in a really interesting predicament. Do they switch? If they switch, now all of a sudden you're putting a huge defender on Beal and a tiny one on KD. Do they blitz? Well, sure, they can blitz, but KD is big enough to get the pass over the defenders to Bradley Beal, who now can play, as noted by Zach Lowe, in a sort of Draymond Green-esque situation where he's the playmaker in the middle of the floor with nobody around him. And he's obviously a player who can get to the rim as quickly as possible. And I just hope they use him more. This is something that I think we've been asking for a while, and I really hope it's something we see.
Yeah, it was a fantastic point from Lowe, and just, I fully agree in the sense that I think they should lean into it even more heavily. I'd like to see more than 7 ball screens per 100. I'd like to see, by the way, not just Bradley Beal doing this, but one massive advantage of signing a guy like Eric Gordon is that he's more than capable of doing it as well. He's got a sturdy body. He can set screens, or he can go screens and pop out to the three-point line and launch, and will provide the same exact benefit if he's screening for Kevin Durant. Now the smallest defender is going to be on Kevin Durant. So it all just it comes down to this idea of, like, basically what Lowe was saying about if Bradley Beal is going to be the point guard or if Devin Booker is going to be the point guard, the Suns don't have a transcendent playmaker on this team. They have guys who, yes, they can run traditional high screen pick and roll. They can see the floor well from the middle of the court, but they're not the best of the best when it comes to playmaking. So they need to get a little bit more inventive in terms of how they use their offense this year, and that will involve more screening, more off-ball screening actions, and kind of anything that can create these mismatches early in the shot clock for a guy like Kevin Durant, a finisher, or Devin Booker or whatever, to go out and attack and be aggressive. But absolutely, they should lean heavily into this stuff. I want to see it all the time.
I do too. And I think the thing about having 3 guys in Booker, KD, and Beal is, of course, there's only one ball. People will bring that up to you incessantly if they know you're a Suns fan. But you have to find ways to involve more than one of them in these actions, and that often means one of them has to become a screener. And so if Booker or KD are on the ball, one of the other two probably should be involved in the action somehow, especially moving, not necessarily just standing still behind the 3-point line. And that means likely that they end up screening. It also means, as I mentioned in a previous podcast, that DeAndre Ayton will likely be relegated to the dunker spot more often if he's not specifically the screener. Obviously, they can run double screen actions or some actions where he sets pin downs or screens for other guys off the ball. But I think often he's going to be in a role where it's slightly different, in that dunker spot. And I think as Suns fans, we have to get used to that. And I really hope he embraces it. Zach Lowe talked about DeAndre and as well, just talking about how pivotal he is defensively and how important it is for him to be focused and engaged. He also said, and this is the one thing that I think you could call some level of reporting and not analysis, and that is, there is no viable trade right now turning DeAndre into the kinds of players or picks that would maintain or boost the Suns' title odds per league sources, implying, of course, that the Suns were looking for trades and could not find anything that they would deem worthy of making that DeAndre Ayton trade, essentially trading their last trade asset that they have right now outside of a handful of second-round picks. Yeah, any thoughts on what he said about DeAndre? And I think that was kind of something that's been hashed and rehashed if you're a Suns fan at this point.
Yeah, the stuff about that they're trying for a trade, they can't find a trade. I suppose it's another level of confirmation from him from a league source's perspective, but not something that's surprising to either of us at all. There was an interesting quote in here when he's talking about essentially now that the Suns' top priority has to be I'm going to quote him directly here, doing whatever it takes to repair their relationship with Ayton to lift him back up. And so that kind of is what that section of the article, the tone that it then takes on. How do you lift DeAndre Ayton back up? Obviously, Monty Williams is gone. Chris Paul is gone. If he had any sort of fractured relationship with the two of them, and we still don't know exactly to what extent that was the case, those two are gone. So whose responsibility is it now to lift him back up, and how do they do it? Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, and Frank Vogel, I guess, would be the four main guys.
Matt Ishbia.
Matt Ishbia to an extent. I don't know how much direct owner-to-player dialogue there is there. What can Matt Ishbia really do to lift DeAndre Ayton up now that, he's
all I know is that
paid,
Robert Sarver had a pretty negative, on the opposite end of that, Robert Sarver had a pretty negative impact on a lot of players in the past.
That's fair.
And we know that from what other retired players have spoken about, or even players that are still in the NBA have spoken about when it comes to Robert Sarver. So I know if there can be a negative interaction, there can probably be a positive one, I assume. I think it's okay to question the true level of impact that might have on a player compared to, because what the implication was from Zach Lowe was coaches to players, top to bottom.
Yeah.
And there was even two references to players at the end of the bench sort of voicing their displeasure with DeAndre Ayton in the past. And he's talking about all 15 guys. And if you include Saban Lee and Udoka, that's 17 guys at this point. So, and I think, he's right. And and I think he put it right that there's a delicate balance with playoff teams sometimes where things can go badly. And it is just sort of another plate spinning for the Suns that they have to keep spinning throughout the season. And that plate can't fall in the playoffs when things get harder. And it's an interesting perspective, and I thought it was a good perspective. I think it's a good article, especially for if you're a non-Suns fan in particular, to read and really sort of wrap your head around it, because it's an honest assessment of what the Suns are, and that is that they're going to be really good with three great players, and when the defense and everything slows down and they need high-level isolation scoring, they have some of the most players in the league capable of doing that. So that's going to be tough for other teams to deal with in the playoffs. And it's just one of those things, and I thought he did another good job, by the way, talking about this as well, where how are teams going to guard all three of these guys? You're just start listing
he's
teams
singled
like
out the Nuggets, the Mavs. It's going to be freaking impossible for them. Who does Luka guard?
The Nuggets, the Mavs, the Wolves. Who? How do you end up? Can you hide players on this team? How do you end up doing that?
He threw out the Mavs as an example, and he was like, okay, let's say the Suns start Keita Bates-Diop, who, by the way, Lowe actually knows what he's talking about, because he thinks Bates-Diop is in the lead for the starting spot. And I don't know if he is. It could be Bates-Diop, it could be Okogie, it could be a number of guys like we've talked about. But at least he's not out here saying Bol is going to start with some sort of Photoshop of how dangerous is this starting five for the Suns. So, he's not ridiculous like some coverage is. But he's talking about if Kyrie, as the weakest defender on the Mavs, just to use an example, is going to guard Keita Bates-Diop, who does Luka Doncic guard? And that assumes that Keita Bates-Diop is playing at all. What if the Suns close games with Eric Gordon, and now Eric Gordon is the weakest, quote-unquote, weakest offensive player in a Suns
and a great
lineup.
screener.
And a great screener. And now Kyrie is guarding that guy?
Yeah, exactly.
Plus Luka is guarding Bradley Beal?
It's fascinating.
Yeah, not every team is going to struggle to defend as much as the Dallas Mavericks, I don't think. But
we're going to talk more. We're going to talk more about them,
them.
because at the second half of this podcast, we're going to talk about every Western Conference team briefly, just to break down how things have changed in the Western Conference landscape. And I think Dallas is kind of interesting when you look at the changes they made this offseason. But yeah, do you have anything else that you wanted to cover? Because I have one other thing I wanted to talk to you about.
I think that's probably it for the Lowe article. It was a good article. If you have ESPN Plus, go seek it out.
Yeah, and if you don't, we talked about a lot of the interesting stuff here.
That's fair.
So
that's
you
fair.
got to hear
honestly,
some of the interesting stuff.
Honestly,
here.
yeah.
It's really good, though. Here's something I wanted to ask you. And I'll frame it like this. Are Suns fans underrating Kevin Durant at this point? And here's why I'll ask. Because the playoffs, in a weird way, I've heard people sort of describe the playoffs for Kevin Durant as if it were bad, for example, or like it didn't go very well for Kevin Durant. And sort of the implication of that is, I don't know, what Kevin Durant are we going to be getting next season, which of course you never know what kind of player you're going to get. But what I did just to sort of hammer home just how good Kevin Durant was, I wanted to take this opportunity to do that. And you know what this is? This is really shepherding our listeners directly into optimism season, as we've talked about year over year on this podcast. It begins right now, essentially, as we're going to talk about these stats. So I pulled some stats, and I wanted to read these stats to you just to really hammer home how good Kevin Durant is, and then, of course, you can give a response to that. But first, I'll let you answer. Do you think Suns fans are underrating KD at this point?
I think they do. We got a question recently, was it on the mailbag last week, about who's better, KD or Book at this point? And, yeah, I think just the fact that that's a question, obviously Book was sensational in the playoffs. Kevin Durant is still Kevin Durant. And I actually think
Book will pass KD at some point.
Sure. Could be this year.
One gets older and the other doesn't. You know,
but there's a benefit. There's a benefit of the doubt that KD gets. I'm sure you have some lovely stats as we go here. By the way, August 1st, if you're listening to this, it's probably August 1st already. Maybe it's even later. I would suggest that August 1st be officially declared a national holiday as the start of optimism season.
Oh, I love it. We have a date now.
Nationwide.
We've talked. This is probably our fourth year talking about optimism season.
It is kind
because
of a bummer.
As everyone knows, for those who really listen to the podcast and have for this is our sixth off season that we're covering the podcast, I tend to do the same thing every year, which is spend the first month of the off season trading every single player on the Suns and making the case that you could improve those positions. And then, of course, shifting into, once the team is actually set, talking about what the team actually will be. And I think that, for me, is when it becomes optimism. I spent today, for example, watching every single basket KD shot while he was on the Suns, every single assist by Drew Eubanks last season, because I was looking at just what he's capable of.
How many assists was that? 18 assists?
It's like 1.3
okay,
per
that's
game.
Not terrible. Not terrible.
Yeah, but you can watch the video of his short roll assists that I posted if you haven't already, because
I actually haven't seen it.
It's pretty impressive, actually. And the Trailblazers trap a lot, right? So Eubanks has the opportunity to make a lot of short roll assists. Anyway, we'll talk about Eubanks more later. Let's talk about KD. KD averaged, do you know what he averaged off the top of your head in the playoffs?
Like 29, 8, and 5?
That's basically exactly right.
I looked at it a couple days ago.
29 points, 8.7 rebounds, 5.5 assists on 47% field goal percentage, 47%. Was the cutoff that I used, because I looked at players who have averaged 29, 8, and 5 on at least 47% field goal percentage, and I filtered by at least 10 games because I didn't want guys who got swept and played well or something. Here's the list of names of players that have done that. 29, 8, and 5 on at least 47% field goal percentage. Jokic, Giannis, LeBron, Durant, and Oscar Robertson. A massive gap in time between Oscar Robertson.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the rest of the guys on this list. A few of them have done it more than once in like LeBron, Giannis, and Jokic.
Was Giannis the final season?
Yes. Yes. And I think twice was Giannis. I don't have the full list in front of me, so he's done it more than once. And that's just even what we consider a bad playoffs for KD is just absurd. You know, I watched all these shots from KD today, like I said, and thinking about the issues with the team last season, I'm watching these post-ups by Kevin Durant where there's just nobody guarding Chris Paul and there's nobody guarding Josh Okogie at all, while KD has the ball. And the way that the team was constructed after that trade, through no fault of anyone involved, it was just how it happened, right? It was difficult to get things going, and he still was capable of putting 29, 8, and 5. What's your reaction to that?
He is just fucking sensational at basketball, and a versatile three-way scorer, the likes of which we've never seen, and who knows how long it'll be before we see someone quite like him again. Hopefully he has several years left before he hangs it up. So I don't want to frame this as like a legacy discussion, right. But yeah, he's so good. And I pulled up the stats too, just for his regular season. I know people don't care as much about the regular season.
And I got more, by the way, on that too.
Okay, well, I mean, just, career high true shooting percentage in the regular season at age 34.
It's crazy.
No one talks about that. 67% true shooting on 29 points per game in the regular season. Was he as healthy as we would have liked? No, obviously. But do you have this stat, or can I throw out this one? Do you know how many players in NBA history have averaged at least 29 points per game and at least 67% true shooting in a single season? Do you know that one?
I believe it's just one. Am I wrong?
It's nobody. It was a trick question.
It's just KD.
It's just KD.
Yeah.
Steph
because
has
here's
come close.
the stat I have.
Sure.
Exactly. KD averaged 29 points on 61% effective field goal percentage because I was trying to take,
so we just used a slightly
I was
different
trying to
stat.
take free throws out of it just for the record, and it's
Free
only
throws
been
count.
done.
It's a legitimate
free
offense.
throws do count, and they do count. So as far as 29 points on 61% effective field goal percentage, KD and Steph. And Steph did it once last year and once in his second MVP. And that's the only time even Steph has done it. And the highest true shooting percentage of those 3 seasons, as you noted, was Kevin Durant. 29 points on 67% true shooting percentage is something that, it was impossible until last season. And yes, he played, I think, 47 games last year, which I think is notable. He did only play 47 games, so we have to factor that in to what we're looking at. But he ended up playing the playoffs, and we talked about the playoff sets. 6 players in the NBA shot at least 5 mid-range shots per game last season. We've talked about this stat on the podcast before. I just wanted to reiterate it. 6 players have shot at least 5 mid-range shots. Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Kawhi Leonard, Joel Embiid, DeMar DeRozan, and do you want to guess the last one?
I was waiting for you to say DeMar DeRozan.
I think you could have guessed all of those, right?
You said Embiid and Kawhi.
Durant, Booker, Kawhi, Embiid, and DeRozan were the first 5.
Is it an all-star?
One-time all-star, I think. Maybe I'm wrong.
One-time all-star.
Might not be an all-star, actually. Western Conference player, I'll give you that. I don't think you'll get it. I would have never guessed it.
Ingram?
It is Ingram.
Okay, cool.
Nailed it.
Nice. I was thinking who's kind of mid, but good, but mid.
Well, he was by far the worst field goal percentage on those mid-range shots.
We'll also talk about the Pelicans later in the second half of this episode, I have a feeling.
On those mid-range shots, Ingram shot 43.8%. DeRozan shot 47.3%. That's the largest gap besides the one at the top. Embiid shot 48.7%. Leonard shot 49.2%. Booker shot an absurd 49.4%, which was, by the way, I believe the best number of Booker's career from the mid-range last season. But the gap between number 1 and number 2 from Durant to Devin Booker is basically 7%, because Durant shot 56% from mid-range last season. Number 1 in the NBA for anyone who shot over 5 mid-range shots per game by a gap that was larger than from Booker to Ingram. And it's crazy to think about how efficient he was from mid-range, especially for a player like him who a lot of them are contested. They're not wide open shots. There are guys
in the
closing
mid-range
out.
for him, never. But he can see over the top of any defender. The only time he's going to get into trouble is if he's triple teamed, and that's not going to happen this year. Knock on wood. If the lineups are what we hope they look like.
Well, one more stat related to that, and then we'll go to break here. The Suns were 8-0 when he played in the regular season. When him and Devin Booker shared the court, they were plus 70 in those 8 games, in those minutes where both of them shared the court. And this is a team that did struggle with depth, that did struggle with fit, and yet they still won every game during the regular season and were plus 70 in those minutes, and they improved from last season, I think, pretty dramatically, especially if you look at the team just post-KD trade. Any thoughts on that one?
That they enormously improved their depth and were in pretty good shape, especially if they figure out just 1 or 2 staggered lineups that could become go-tos of either using Beal with the second unit or Ayton with the second unit. Gordon will be a mainstay of that lineup as well. They got to figure that out. It's going to take a while to experiment with it, but I have high hopes.
I mean, it's hard to not have high hopes of the Suns. I want to mention all the things that the Suns did in this offseason, and then we'll take a break and we'll come back and we'll talk about what the rest of the Western Conference did. The Suns, here's the players the Suns lost so far in the offseason. Darius Bazley, Bismack Biyombo, Torrey Craig, Jock Landale, Chris Paul, Cameron Payne, Terrence Ross, Landry Shamet, and TJ Warren. Here's the players the Suns added: Keita Bates-Diop, Bradley Beal, Bol Bol, Tumani Kamara, Drew Eubanks, Jordan Goodwin, Eric Gordon, Chimezi Metu, Yuta Watanabe, and then they re-signed Damian Lee and Josh Okogie, as well as the two ways.
And Udoka Azubuike. Did you say his name?
I did not.
That's okay.
Pretty good offseason for the Suns, I think. So let's take a quick break, and when we come back, let's talk about what the rest of the Western Conference did, and talk about who we think is in the top tier of contenders, I think. We'll be right back. All right, Sam, I wanted to cover, it's been an offseason where a lot of stuff happened, and I wanted to cover every single team in the Western Conference, at least briefly, to recap what they did, and then talk about whether or not we think they improved, or if they got worse, and kind of where they stand in the tiers of the Western Conference. I guess we have to make up some tiers, right? We got the contender tier.
Yep.
And then we got the pretender tier, I guess, and then just the other teams. That's probably enough.
That's fine. I think you could split it up even more about, like, are the other teams trying to compete or are they not trying to compete? But
well, there won't be much if we split them up like that.
For our purposes, I don't think we have to do that. Also, I will say, like, we could have in a normal offseason maybe even gotten to this initial discussion of scoping out the rest of the conference earlier. But it's been a weird summer for the Western Conference.
There's still things that are going to happen, yeah.
Exactly. It's been a summer of blue balls. And so there are a couple of teams in here that I think have done basically nothing this summer because they're waiting.
TBD.
They're waiting on certain...
They're the Suns last year.
Yeah, they're waiting on another shoe to fall. So we'll have to see. Like the Los Angeles Clippers, no idea what to do with them as we wait and see if they're going to make that James Harden trade or not. The Portland Trailblazers. Obviously, Damian Lillard's still out there. Is he going to go? Is he not going to go? We shall see. But for the most part, 12, 13 out of the 15 teams in this conference, I think we can reasonably put into one of these tiers. I like to frame it as moved or not moved, which is the most like Zoomer discourse that I could think of as a framing mechanism for how we can talk about this. There are a couple of teams that move me with what they did. The vast majority of these teams, I'll tell you right now, I'm not moved. But we'll get into it one by one.
I'm going to go. Yes, we're going to go in alphabetical order because that is the order of the list that I have. And that means that we're starting with the Dallas Mavericks. And with the Dallas Mavericks, I'm going to give you some notable additions and some notable players lost. We're not going to go through every single little thing they did. Obviously, the biggest notable addition, if you want to call him that, of the Dallas Mavericks was re-signing Kyrie Irving, who could have left from the team but stayed on for a few years at least. Dwight Powell was also re-signed. I think their next biggest move was the sign and trade with the Boston Celtics for Grant Williams.
No doubt.
Other players of note, Seth Curry and Rashawn Holmes, I think, are the other two. Players that they lost, there's not a ton here, I think, that you would be too worried about if you were the Mavericks. Davis Bertans, Reggie Bullock, Justin Holiday.
Christian Wood is still...
Christian Wood, a player who scored a lot for them last year. Theo Pinson, I'm not sure if he's allowed to have a podcast.
You're
if he's
diplomatic about that with your Wood commentary.
I don't think they're losing a great player in Christian Wood. I think they're losing a player who scored a lot, but that's a different thing. I think... Well, let's ask you this first. Are you moved by this?
Not moved. Let's start right here. Not moved. Why should I be moved? You convince me why I should be moved.
They're better, right?
I don't know. Are they?
I think they are. I think Grant Williams is like
solid.
So if you just look at Grant Williams, I think they improved their first role player guy, right?
Tell me this right now. Who is starting at center for this team, which has deep playoff aspirations.
It's got to be Dwight Powell.
And I'll give you
right?
the choices. Here are the choices. It's Dwight Powell, who's going to become the Udonis Haslem of this organization, and has somehow been there for 10 years already.
Yeah.
JaVale McGee, who was an utter disaster last year.
Yeah,
Rashawn Holmes,
out of the rotation.
Rashawn Holmes, who they acquired, who I like, but
I don't think he's going to start.
But did
not a starting center.
Did not play for the Kings really last year at a time when they were at their best. They became at their. I don't think this is his fault, but as soon as Rashawn Holmes stopped playing for the Kings, they became awesome. Or Derek Lively II, who was there. That was the other addition I was going to point out. He was
It's true.
He was their lottery
12th pick in the NBA.
12th pick of the NBA draft this year. Averaged 5 points per game at Duke in his one season.
Probably shouldn't start.
Don't think he should be a starter. Maybe he's good a few years from now. Don't think he should be a starter for a team with deep playoff aspirations in year one. They have problems. That's not even to get into their wing depth, which I think maybe worsened losing Reggie Bullock. Why should I be moved?
Grant Williams is better than Reggie Bullock.
Sure.
So, I mean, that got better. Seth Curry, a good shooter, not really a defender at all. No, I think you're right. I think they slightly improved and they're still not going to be great. But, I think all it takes is for Luka Doncic to come into the season the healthiest he's ever been. And, like we talked about, I don't remember if this was Patreon or not. And it probably wasn't because it was shade. But I said that all Luka Doncic has to do is come into the season in shape and play defense for the first 20 games of the NBA season, and he'll probably win an MVP just because of how set up it is for him to win. And that's if they're a 7th or 8th seed. I think there's still a chance he could do it. But, I still think they'll be pretty good because here's what I think. The Suns would probably have, maybe at worst a top 5 offense, right?
Sure, yeah, they should.
And the Nuggets will probably have a top 5 offense, probably the best.
Nuggets, Suns, Kings should be 3 of the 5. You could slot in right there.
This Mavericks team might be one or the other.
Yeah,
right?
They could be. Their offense could be incredible.
Yeah,
but their defense,
I start there, right? That their offense is going to be extremely good at the very least.
Like I think we'll get to the Kings later. I think they suck at defense and didn't address that either. The Mavs could be that bad too.
Yeah,
who's anchoring? Yeah. You need a guy to anchor a defense. You're going to rely on the rookie who averaged 5 points, or Rashawn Holmes, or Dwight Powell. There isn't a good choice for them.
Not moved. We'll put them in the pretender category.
I think they're a pretender.
Okay, I mean they'll have to do something to change my mind, but I agree. Denver Nuggets. Can we just put them in the contender category right away? They just won the NBA title.
I don't think. Sure. Yeah.
They got worse, right?
Detail it. Throw it out there.
Okay, they lost. This is probably the most notable loss of any team, and that's Bruce Brown Jr. Being lost by the team that just won the NBA title and a player that played essentially the most minutes off the bench for them, and a really, really good player in Bruce Brown Jr., who now makes over $20 million. They also lost Jeff Green, who was a good player and played, good enough to play on their shortened playoff rotation. And he is now gone as well. Their notable additions are nobody. I mean, they re-signed Reggie Jackson. They re-signed, for some reason, DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah, that was perhaps the most puzzling thing about it all is that they let 2 guys in. And Bruce Brown, they couldn't have controlled that. They couldn't have matched that money. But at the end of the day, they let 2 guys in their top 8 playoff rotation go. And the 2 guys that they re-signed, that they prioritized, seemingly, were Reggie Jackson and DeAndre Jordan, who didn't play in the playoffs. Now, I will say, I like the fact that they acquired some extra picks. They drafted, I think, 3 guys in the 30 to 40 range in the draft, and I don't know anything about any of them. So maybe one of those guys is their next Christian Brown, which I'm sure is what they're thinking.
That's what they're hoping for. Yeah.
But unless, it's a little scary for them if they have to now rely on that happening rather than having some veterans on the bench. So I think they've earned the respect having this dominant playoff run. They will go into the season as, again, a contender, and not just that, as basically the expected number one seed in the Western Conference. I think they've earned that right.
Okay.
But they didn't have a great offseason.
They got worse.
Yes.
They got worse. They're a contender that got worse.
Yeah.
The Dallas is a pretender that got better. Just to recap where we're at right now. Let's see. Next team, Golden State Warriors. Players they lost. I think the biggest notable loss is probably, obviously Jordan Poole and Dante DiVincenzo.
Yep.
I think those are probably the biggest losses that they have. They also lost JaMychal Green, and then some players I think that just didn't play a lot of minutes. Andre Iguodala retired. I guess that's notable, if only because he played so many minutes for them for so long. Notable additions: Chris Paul and Dario Saric, former Suns players.
God damn it.
They also, I mean, just from the perspective of a good offseason, they did re-sign Draymond Green to what I think was a pretty good contract for Draymond Green. They also added Corey Joseph and as well as a draft pick.
I forget
what do you think?
that they added Dario.
Does this move you? Is the question.
I'm slightly moved.
It's the weirdest one, right?
It's the weirdest one.
It has to be the weirdest
I
one.
recognize the massive implosion potential here. And again, I obviously there's Chris Paul. I forgot that they grabbed Dario as well. I think that's a solid,
good contract for them.
That's a solid JaMychal Green replacement, if nothing more.
Yeah.
Just brutal for me that now I have to watch Warriors games and see not only Chris Paul but also Dario and think, damn, I can't root for these guys because they're the Warriors. I like those guys, but I can't root for them. I am slightly moved in the sense that, I think it was Nekias Duncan recently who was talking about how much the Warriors offense has always struggled in the non-Steph Curry minutes throughout the entire, even through the KD era. And, if Chris Paul is playing with their bench, if he embraces that role, they have a real chance to take a big leap with their second unit lineups. And yeah, this could be fairly dangerous at its best, but it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot of buy-in from all parties. And
did they get better or worse?
I would say they got better because the guys that you listed, Jordan Poole had a brutal season. I don't think it's his fault. I still like him quite a bit. I like him a lot more just as a person than Draymond Green, to be honest with you. But he had a brutal season. It's true. DiVincenzo, whatever. JaMychal Green, they replaced with Dario.
I mean, he's a player that played minutes for them. Like, DiVincenzo played playoff minutes. So, obviously Dario Saric, Chris Paul, they're going to play minutes.
When Chris Paul falls apart,
will probably play minutes.
If Chris Paul falls apart in the playoffs,
I think.
Now, this isn't fair analysis because they could turn around and say when Kevin Durant falls apart in the playoffs, and touche. But
Bradley Beal, Devin Booker,
whatever. But if Chris Paul falls apart in the playoffs, do they have the depth to make up for it? I don't know. Draymond gets worse every year.
I think that's what they're looking at, is that they are an aging team who their biggest addition is their oldest player now. So,
but I'm slightly moved.
I think they're going to be extremely, extremely good in the regular season, and whether or not they improved as far as what they did in the playoffs last year remains to be seen, and is incredibly dependent on the health of Chris Paul, who is a notoriously injured player. So that sucks to say, but they're still a contender, though, right?
Yeah, for sure. No,
you got to give them that credit.
You can't count this team out. They will be there every year. They'll be in the hunt.
Here's a weird team. The Houston Rockets.
Contenders!
They lost nobody of note because they didn't have very many players of note. They added Dylan Brooks in an insane contract, Fred VanVleet on an insane contract as well.
I would say equally insane contract for Fred VanVleet.
At least he's good. Jeff Green, Aaron Holiday, and then some really interesting drafted players. By the way, Jock Landale, we should mention.
Yes, yep,
as well, added to that team, and Amen Thompson was a player they drafted, as well as Cam Whitmore, a player that was supposed to go higher and ended up falling far enough that they were able to draft him at 20th, and then he ended up winning Summer League MVP. So with their 20th pick, they picked the Summer League MVP. This team undoubtedly got better than last season, even if you're going to talk about these guys as all massively overpaid. Do they move you at all?
No, in the sense that they're going to be one of the worst teams in the Western Conference again, but they are a good example to serve that unless the Blazers do really blow it up and they end up trading Damian Lillard before the season starts, which is looking, I don't know, maybe increasingly unlikely, every team in this conference could beat you, will be competitive. I don't think there's
Jalen Green's only getting better.
I don't think there's a 20-win team in this conference. I look at the amount of serviceable role players, even if you disagree with their particular methods of expenditure and the way that they use their cap space this summer, I look at that roster you just listed out, all of the guys they added, plus obviously their young core, the Şengüns, the Jalen Greens, yada yada. I see a 30-win team there. They'll be solid. They won't be good.
They got better.
But you got to take a team like that seriously, yeah.
What are we, 5-6 teams in, and only one team has gotten worse, and it was the Denver Nuggets who won the title last year.
Well, we continue to see even more. I mean, injuries are going to throw a wrench into a bunch of these teams, as they always do. But it's optimism season. Most of these teams feel that they got better. And also, it's the age of parity in the NBA. We're talking about the NBA champions who had a dominant run kind of coming back to the median level a little bit and everyone else racing to catch up. I think that's by design. That's what the NBA wants with its new CBA. It wants the team that just won the finals to always feel the pressure, to feel the heat from the other franchises.
Los Angeles Clippers.
Yeah, I don't even know what to do with these guys.
They barely did anything. They lost Eric Gordon and Xavier Moon, who, they didn't play. They added KJ Martin in a good trade, I believe 2 second-round picks or something like that for KJ Martin, and Kobe Brown, who they picked in the draft, and they re-signed Mason Plumlee and Russell Westbrook. Those are basically their biggest moves so far. They're, like you said, in limbo. I mean, if you think KJ Martin is a better fit than Eric Gordon, because that's basically the thing that they swapped, KJ Martin for Eric Gordon, then I think you can make the case they got better. And if you don't, then you can make the case they got worse. Or, in my opinion, they're basically, I feel exactly the same about them as I did last year. But what do you think?
Yeah, I don't even know what to say about that. I mean, I think Eric Gordon was one of their only competent three-point shooters, and replacing that with KJ Martin, who, has some talent and skills, but it's just not what they needed. They already had enough wing depth, in my opinion, and they need the shooting. It depends on... I think the better way to frame this is if the James Harden trade happens, then are you moved? Because as of now...
It depends on what the trade is.
As of now, how could you possibly say that this team moves you? I mean, we've seen it 5 years in a row.
It's the same thing.
I fell for it.
Older,
I fell for the propaganda. I mean,
everybody has.
Yeah.
Sam, you don't have to feel guilty about it. I think it's totally fair.
My Clippers. What became of my Clippers? I've abandoned my child, my boy.
I think that they are at their best. The Clippers were the scariest when they had a ton of shooting, and they lost Eric Gordon, replaced him with a non-shooter in KJ Martin, and are planning on playing Russell Westbrook a lot of minutes. It makes them less scary to me. Are they pretenders at this point?
Yeah,
are we going to knock them down a tier?
Yeah, I think they're pretenders.
I like it.
I mean, if Kawhi and PG both play 65 plus games, we can revisit that.
Well, they'd have to be healthy in the playoffs. But yeah, I agree. I think we have to call them that, and they can convince me otherwise as well. They'd have to make that trade because there's just nothing else I think that excites me. The whole time you just be thinking, will these guys be healthy in the playoffs? Which, because you talked about it 5 years in a row, yeah, hard to be excited. The Lakers, the other team in LA, had a pretty dramatic offseason as far as making changes. The list of players they lost is pretty long. The list of players they lost that I think are good players, it's probably just Malik Beasley. Lonnie Walker, I guess if you liked him. You won one game for them.
Okay,
right?
Yeah, but I would say
Dennis Schroeder.
Malik Beasley is their one good player.
And they added Jackson Hayes, Taurean Prince, Cam Reddish. I don't know if you're excited about that. Gabe Vincent.
Cam Reddish sucks. I mean, can we just... God,
I think he does too. Yeah.
I hate the fact, of all teams he could have gone to, he should have gone to some bad team where he could rot on the bench and people could forget his existence. But instead, he went to the Lakers.
He's going to be overhyped every time he does it.
He's going to have one good game in 2 months, and the Cam Reddish hype. This is a guy, I don't understand where it came from with Cam Reddish all these years. He shot 33% from deep in college, and that was his biggest skill coming out of the draft.
On a team he was wide open. We've known, by the way.
We've known for years. He's sucked for years. I've never understood with Cam Reddish. Ball don't stop mixtapes rotted our collective brains. Anyway.
Re-signed Rui Hachimura, Austin Reeves, and D'Angelo Russell. I think all three good players. D'Angelo Russell has his occasional being not a good player on the court, as well as Rui Hachimura, to be honest. But Rui Hachimura, I think for what they traded for him, I think they got a good player out of him. I think they got better, right?
They did what they needed to do by re-signing Reeves, by re-signing D'Lo, Hachimura, and you can't discount, by the way, the Gabe Vincent acquisition. That's a good acquisition.
I think that was huge.
Replacing,
it's a player who can run a pick and roll and shoot threes.
It's more in line with what they needed than what they lost in Malik Beasley. Both guys can shoot. Gabe Vincent more comfortable with the ball in his hands. They're a contender. They are. I don't think they're better than the Suns if you put a gun to my head right now. But yeah, they're in the tier. They deserve it. They were in the Western Conference Finals.
They're a little bit, like the Clippers in that they have notoriously injured players. One in Anthony Davis, and a lot rides on him. And LeBron James is 38 next year. I think he'll be. So yeah, it'll be a fascinating season for them. But I think they've earned that respect. They also played their best basketball right before the playoffs, even though they kind of got their asses kicked once they actually made the playoffs. I think they definitely got better, and I think they're contenders as well. I could see a few games into the season, I could see knocking them down into the pretenders tier, though.
Okay, yeah, I could see that.
I'm not afraid of saying that that's possible. Here's a fascinating one. The Memphis Grizzlies lost Dylan Brooks and Tyus Jones and Ja Morant for 25 games. Added Derrick Rose, Marcus Smart, and Isaiah Todd, if you want to talk about former Suns players. They also, I think this was a really good move for them, re-signed Desmond Bane to a massive contract extension, but one that I think he earned. It's a fascinating team where, I like Marcus Smart a lot. We've talked about him a lot on this podcast. I really like him a lot.
He's certainly better than Dylan Brooks. I'll give them that.
He's better than Dylan Brooks. Is Derrick Rose better than Tyus Jones?
He is certainly a lot worse than Tyus Jones. So, to be honest with you, those were their two big moves.
Right.
And I think they cancel each other out.
So you feel the same about
Tyus Jones was a loss. That was kind of a big loss.
He was really good.
He was everyone called him the best backup point guard in the league. Their bench lineup net ratings with him were killer. Because they
also got a ton of credit for playing really well without Ja Morant when Ja Morant didn't play, and none of that credit tended to go Tyus Jones's way for some reason.
Yeah,
I think he deserved a lot of that credit.
I'm tempted. This is tough because part of it is I've had to eat my words on Jaren Jackson Jr. in the past year. He's
been so good.
He was so awesome. It took him so long to click, and I made fun of him for years, to be honest, because there were certain things in his game that he just had to iron out, and it took him a while, but now we're here 5-6 years in, and he's legitimately awesome. But that notwithstanding, I just can't shake the feeling that these guys are pretenders. How do you feel?
I think they're contenders. If only because Marcus Smart will just do some shady stuff in the playoffs.
Dylan Brooks already did. What are your expectations of Ja Morant this year? Let's start there.
I think he's going to be awesome. And I think that's the reason. Look, I understand all the off-court stuff going on with Ja Morant, but he's a player that is essentially just about to enter his athletic prime, who was extremely good the last 2 seasons and is probably going to be better every season for the next few years when he plays basketball. And I think you could say the same about Jaren Jackson Jr. And that's why I think it's hard for me to... Their two best players are going to be most likely better this year than they were last year. Everything else is essentially the same. And to me, that means they're a contender. Am I scared of them? Not really. Admittedly, to be fair, and maybe that is what makes them a pretender, in your mind at the very least. But I would say that there's a world where they win a championship next year, and I wouldn't be completely shocked.
Yeah, it's a small chance, though.
Yeah, it's small.
It's a very small chance.
I agree. Yeah, if I had to rank them of the contenders that we have so far, they'd be the last.
I think they're a pretender. I'm not. Yeah. You can have them in your contender list. I'm not comfortable going there.
I kind of love that take. I'm going to be honest.
Okay. I mean, it might come back.
It's some haterade.
My history of many bad takes. This might come back to bite me in the ass.
Everyone has bad takes that does a podcast twice a week here.
It's true.
The Minnesota Timberwolves. Notable losses: Taurean Prince. that's basically it. Jalen Noel, I guess you could say Jalen Noel. Austin Rivers, Matt Ryan, Nathan Knight. That's the total list there. Their notable additions? They're the same team. Right? They're the same team.
How will Karl Anthony Towns, fresh off a season in which he changed the game, according to him, how will the Timberwolves change the game again this year, anew?
Troy, let me read the players they added. Troy Brown, Jalen Clark, Leonard Miller, Shake Milton. Only one of them.
I kind of like Shake Milton.
Yeah, that's the only one that played actual minutes in the NBA in the last few years. Other than that, and I'll give him credit for this, contract extension for Anthony Edwards, contract extension for Naz Reid, who broke his hand against the Suns, actually, last season, or his wrist, and is a good player, but he's their third center. Just a weird. I don't understand what this team is doing. You know, there were some rumors that they were shopping Karl Anthony Towns, and that makes a lot of sense to me. You know, because Gobert has no value, so maybe you can try to extract as much value as you possibly could out of Karl Anthony Towns. But at this point, I wouldn't say they're doing a good job building around Anthony Edwards, and if I were him, I wouldn't be entirely happy with it.
Oh, I'm
interested to see.
Are we on trade watch for Anthony Edwards now? Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah.
Considering he just signed a massive contract extension. But yeah.
Think they move off Conley this year? He's an expiring contract. I'm just thinking of, like, what's the avenue for improvement for this team if you've got this massive $55-60 million anchor in Gobert that can't be moved? You're obviously not going to trade Edwards. You want him to be the centerpiece. So it's either trade Cat. I mean, Conley was pretty good for them when they acquired him mid-season. Like, credit to him. He's, 35 years old now?
He's their stabilizer, yeah.
He's almost 36. He's going to start this season 36 years old. And I thought he had a rock-solid second half of the year.
He was better for them than D'Angelo Russell was.
But how the hell are they going to improve? They don't have tradable assets.
They traded as many picks for Gobert as the Suns did for Durant outside of the swaps.
Are they even a pretender, I guess, is my question here, or are they
No,
other?
I don't think so.
You think they're just other?
Yeah, I don't have any faith in this team being great next year.
All right.
Anthony Edwards, it would take a massive Anthony Edwards leap, because I think we know what Karl Anthony Towns is, and if he's your second best player, not that excited. Look, if he's your fourth best player, third best player, that's more exciting, I think. But at this point, if he's your second best, yeah, I'm not moved.
Not moved.
The New Orleans Pelicans.
Oh, this one's fun.
Man, they didn't do much either. I'm just looking at these teams.
But it's still
fun. They lost Jackson Hayes,
finally,
Willie Hernan Gomez, Josh Richardson, and Garrett Temple. Garrett Temple just signed a contract, I think, a few days ago or maybe yesterday. They added Cody Zeller, the 14th pick, and Jordan Hawkins, and that's it?
Sure.
Is that really all they did?
Yeah.
I mean, they re-signed Herb Jones, and that's it. Yeah, that's it. Wow.
Continuity, Mike. Can I be
feel
honest
bad
here?
for those Pelicans podcasters,
Well,
man.
Can I start here?
Well, yeah, sure.
I'm kind of moved.
Interesting.
You're not moved?
Even after all the things that happened with Zion in this offseason?
What happened? A bunch of bullshit that he didn't respond to, like a mature adult.
Yeah, it's true.
And someone ranted at him on Twitter and got their 15 minutes of fame. Or was it Instagram?
It's
I
true.
can't even remember. I barely followed that whole saga because it doesn't matter. Look, if I'm a Pelicans fan right now, I'm not comfortable with things as they stand. But, of course, we're going to have to play the whole what this team is on paper. But what this team is on paper still moves me. I kind of haven't budged from my position of when they didn't really almost knock us out of the playoffs, but when they gave us a tough series last year. And since then, Trey Murphy has become a hell of a lot better. Brandon Ingram is Brandon Ingram. CJ McCollum. They're not great. So it all revolves around Zion. Herb Jones, still there, like you said, re-signed. Valanciunas, you know what you're going to get.
Didn't really improve last year in Herb Jones.
Yeah, Herb Jones is Herb Jones. He was a second-round pick. He was meant to be a high-floor, low-ceiling type player. Trey Murphy really had was it his third season? He had a great
Yeah, he's probably their best candidate for somebody who could just really improve and makes a big difference as far as improvement goes.
If Zion is healthy, and I understand, I know I'm not supposed to fall for this again, but if he is, I think they're contenders before Memphis. I really think that. I'd put them up there.
I don't.
But I understand if you want them in the pretender. But I just think if this team is actually playing,
I don't mind it. I believed in them last year, and I was burned, I think, a little bit by what they were last year.
Yeah.
Because the difference between them when Zion was healthy and them when he wasn't healthy was, number one in the West to the worst team in the NBA.
They weren't the worst team in the NBA, but yeah, they were.
I think at one time they lost 16 out of 18 games.
They went to they were like the 20th or 25th best team in the NBA.
Yeah. Pretty bad.
But
That's pretty bad.
also a demonstration of the fact that Zion guy
and they had other injuries too.
Zion is pretty good.
I know, he's extremely good.
People forgot. People kind of forgot.
All right.
I don't know if I'm rooting
say
for
they're
him.
Pretenders.
You're going to say Pretenders?
Yeah.
I'm going to say Contenders.
And then, so they got, I think, are you thinking they got better just by the equity they have of their team, like getting older?
Yeah, their team got a little bit older, and their team's not that old to begin with. CJ's kind of old, but other than that, their team's not that old to begin with.
Okay.
And they need health. Look, I think they're far below everyone else in the tier of contenders, and I understand if no one actually has faith in them going into the season. But, like, the difference between them is I think of New Orleans at full strength, and I see a team that could just play really good basketball, where I think for Memphis, it's kind of them being at health is the expectation. And even in that case, I just don't think they'll be that good. I think they'll be a second-round playoff team.
Fair.
That's how I feel.
Are you scared of them if the Suns match up against them?
The Pelicans, if Zion's playing? Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I don't know if they're better than us. I don't think they are. But I think any Suns fan should be a little scared of the prospect of playing
so that would be
healthy Zion Williams in the playoffs. We haven't seen it
KD.
yet.
Maybe they'd go to Zion at center. I mean, they would have to really rebound. I don't know. That'd be a fascinating matchup. Oklahoma City Thunder. You love this team, right?
I'm moved.
I mean, you should be. I think.
However,
they're going to be better. They're a team that's like without a doubt going to be better than last season.
Okay, but let me say here, I think what we should do, at best, I'm not actually afraid of this team. They're not going to beat the Suns. But I think we should consider: do we move them from the other category into the Pretenders?
Oh,
I would like to.
Know.
I would like to raise that
saw
motion.
Over under
bring it
for
to the
them
floor.
that was like 43. I think. I should have bet the under on that one, by the way.
Is Shea a top 10 player in the NBA?
Okay, let's quickly get to that, but let's quickly just mention what they did. They lost Jared Butler, Dario Saric, Olivier Sarr, Lindy Waters, players that don't play other than Saric, who played well for them. They added Davis Bertans, their Saric replacement, and then Victor Oladipo, did you know about that?
Yes, of course I know. That's part of the thing that's factoring in here. They lost nobody good except Saric is okay, and they added some role players for like nothing.
But really, they added Chet Holmgren.
They added
that's their biggest.
They added Oladipo, they added Bertans, whatever, and they added Vasilija Micic, also coming over from Europe.
Yeah, and they drafted, like the number 10 pick, Cason Wallace was the pick that they picked in this draft, and they have other players that they drafted as well. They have too many players in their roster right now, technically. So we'll see what they end up doing as far as... I think maybe we'll know how much they're trying to improve and how much they're not trying to improve based on the players that they pick or the players they end up not picking. But they're better. I think we're talking about them as, maybe they're not one of the other teams. Maybe they're actually trying to... I don't know. They're gonna make the playoffs, right? Probably.
Yeah. I mean, I hope so. Personally, this is a team that I'm legitimately rooting for. I could see a scenario though where they don't make the playoffs for sure. It's going to be really close in that kind of like seeded 4 through 11 or 12 range in the West. All of those teams are going to be so close. But yeah, they should be striving to make the playoffs. If they don't make the playoffs, this season is a failure. Given how many years Shea has been there. Answer my question. Where do you rank Shea? I know you hate rankings, but like, how good is Shea really?
Extremely good. Extremely good. I think.
Is he is this his all NBA season finally? If the
it definitely could be.
Make the playoffs?
I could see that. Yeah, I could definitely see that, and that would make him a top 6 guard in the NBA. Was that what we're saying? Yeah, I think that would be fair.
Well, okay, actually, he was already
in that conversation at the very
I
least.
actually forgot. He was already All-NBA this year. He was already third
so.
team. Which team was
Well,
he?
there you go.
Can't remember.
I don't know about top 10 player. I think it'll be interesting to see.
Oh my God, Mike! He was
the
the All-NBA first team this year, and I totally forgot which one he was on.
Well, there you go. I think that's pretty well earned when you look at his stats. It's just tough to proclaim someone as a top 10 player without seeing them play any moments in the playoffs.
He's like far and away the best driver in the NBA by the stats, though.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And he's only 24.
Yeah.
And if they add the defense from Chet, and Jalen Williams was almost Rookie of the Year, he couldn't squeeze it out of Paolo's hands, but like he was competitive. And they've got Giddey. Micic, I don't know what to expect of him, but he was a EuroLeague MVP. If he's like
he's a good player,
he's like
yeah.
their sixth man, I think they're set up really well. I think they could be pretenders this year.
I think it's really tough to. Well, first of all, we don't know how good Chet's going to be or if he'll be healthy the whole season. It's also really tough to know how much these guys improved. It's not, improvement in the NBA. It's not this linear thing that's predictable. Guys make leaps. Guys make jumps. They change the way they play at different times of their career. Really difficult to say. There's just so many good. Like, how many teams have we talked about that got worse? Maybe the Timberwolves. Is that the only one? And they have Anthony Edwards entering his prime.
And the Nuggets, you said as well.
Yeah, and the Nuggets. So, like,
the
OKC is who they're gonna leapfrog? The Trailblazers? Maybe they already did.
When it happens, though, let's use a previous example in Thunder franchise history. When it happens, sometimes it is linear. Sometimes it's like you gain 10 wins this season and then 10 the next season. Or sometimes it happens fast and it's like bam.
But that's usually because of a trade.
You don't know what the fuck hit you. But my point is, like, the 2008-09 Oklahoma City Thunder already had Kevin Durant. They had rookie Russell Westbrook. They had second-year Russell Westbrook. They may have already had. No, I think that was the year before they drafted James Harden. But the point is, 23-59. Next year, bam, 50-32. Playoff team.
That's true. It's possible.
When you've got...
If you had a whole season of Chet under your belt, I think you could feel a
when
little
you
more
have
confident
potentially
this is essentially his rookie season.
When you have potentially franchise-changing talent, it can happen really fast, and the Thunder have that in spades between their top four guys. Those guys being Shea, Giddey, Jalen Williams, and Chet. That is as strong a core as any team in the league.
It's very true. They're definitely really high up on my list of teams I'm excited to watch. Let's speed this up a little bit. I'm gonna leave them in the other group. You're gonna put them as a pretender.
I'm gonna put them as a pretender. I believe.
Suns are the next team alphabetically. We already covered them. Contenders, I think we can say top tier contenders up there with Denver. Portland Trailblazers.
Other.
I mean, we can just put a pause on them. They lost Drew Eubanks. That's the important one to us.
Yeah.
And a bunch of other guys. They didn't really add anybody of note. I mean, other than Scoot. Obviously, that's the biggest one. They're going to lose. This is the team that we know for sure is going to be much worse next year, right? This is the only one that we know for sure, right?
Yeah, sure. Well, we don't know that. We don't know that for certain, though, but yeah.
But we're pretty sure. I feel more confident in that than anything else. Next one, Sacramento Kings.
Yeah.
Now, you talked about this team. And they didn't do much either, right?
They didn't do much.
They re-signed Harrison Barnes, Keon Ellis, that qualifying offer, Alex Len. They re-signed Trey Lyles, and then there was a Sabonis contract renegotiation, I think, which added a few years onto his contract as well. None of their other additions were really notable. Chris Duarte, if you like Chris Duarte,
had a terrible
Noel
season
signed
last year in Indiana.
Yeah, not very exciting. Nerlens Noel, basically Rashawn Holmes' replacement, signed onto the team, and they lost, players like Rashawn Holmes, Metu, who the Suns signed, and that's really it.
This is the perfect case, I think, of a team where their fans probably think they're contenders, but they're pretenders.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
I don't hate the fact that they felt that they had to keep Harrison Barnes, even though they paid him probably far more money than they should have, and actually, how much was that contract? Do you remember off the top of your head?
I don't.
I just remember it feeling like a lot to me at the time, but I can't actually. But they kept Harrison Barnes. They kept Trey Lyles, which I don't mind. Okay, never mind. This Barnes contract, not bad. I don't know what I remembered. He's making 17, 18, 19 the next 3 years. So they felt
it's kind of a lot, but yeah, that is the NBA now.
They felt they had to keep Barnes. He's solid, but he is a declining player, a declining role player. I guess the question here is where would the improvement come from? And the only answer I can think of, because De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis already played as good as they could possibly play last season, I think. If Keegan Murray makes a leap, then this team could get better. But it needs
That's what it takes.
It needs to be a big leap.
One of the young guys.
He's their only young guy, really. It needs to be a big leap from Keegan Murray. Otherwise, I just don't see it. And at a time where the rest of the conference is getting stronger too, I think they lost ground rather than gained. I'd put them in the pretender tier.
I agree. The San Antonio Spurs.
Contenders. I'm moved.
I mean,
I'm not
notable
actually
additions: Victor Wembanyama, Cameron Payne, Chetty Osman, Reggie Bullock.
Those are
players,
good names.
man.
Those are real players who could. And it's the Rockets thing, so they're not actually a serious team yet.
But they significantly improved.
They're in the other tier, but they could win 30 games. They could even win 35 games in like a best case scenario, I think. And those guys that you mentioned, Cam Payne, Chetty Osman. Who was the third one that you said? Reggie Bullock. Those are not going to be their starters. Maybe one of them will start for them, but like those could be bench players who help them off the bench.
Those are guys who played in the playoffs.
They have an actual 8 to 10 man 10 man rotation now, because if you think about it, they still have Devin Vassell, they still have Keldon Johnson, they still have Trey Jones, they still have Zach Collins. You could build an 8 to 10 man solid rotation here.
Absolutely. And
everything's going to fall on Wemby's shoulders to see how far they can really be carried, obviously, but they're not a joke. They'll win games.
I think they are what they are, but I think what they did as far as adding what will likely be one of the best defenders in the NBA for like 10, 15 years in Wembanyama, if he can stay healthy, that makes a big difference to a team. And I think we'll be able to see that added to their team, and how fast it clicks offensively for him will be their ceiling. The only real player they lost was Keita Bates-Diop, who went to the Suns.
Kind of a big loss for them, though, not going to lie.
Yeah, but I mean, adding other wings in Bullock and Osman, I think they're fine.
Sure.
Or even Wembanyama, who essentially plays the same position as him. And it'll be fascinating to watch that team. We got one more, I believe. Yes, one more. And that is the Utah Jazz, who the Suns just signed a player from them in Udoka. But they also lost nobody really of note either. Rudy Gay, Damian Jones, Juan Toscano-Anderson. But they made a big trade, and this happened early.
Would you call this a big trade?
I mean, for them, they added John Collins.
They saved James Jones from himself in adding John Collins so that James Jones could not fulfill his multi-year quest to trade for John Collins. And I thank the Utah Jazz for their service.
So we're going back to, and this is kind of what I like about this. We're going back to Lauri Markkanen playing the 3, right?
Yeah, so the fun thing about this team is their front court rocks.
It's kind of
they've got Markkanen, they've got John Collins, they've got Walker Kessler, who he was the other guy besides Williams and Paolo who had an awesome rookie season,
breakout season. Yeah,
and they still have Kelly Olynyk too. So is he going to be their bench big, because he's an awesome bench big?
Yeah,
like
I think
their front court rocks. The problem with them is you've got this question of who starts at point guard, Colin Sexton or Jordan Clarkson. And I think the right answer is no. Like, I think they need anyone else to play point guard for this team. Otherwise, they're not going to go anywhere. But I like their front court.
The player they drafted, Taylor Hendricks, is a forward as well, right?
Yeah.
So, kind of funny, just to keep adding to their eventually they're just going to play 5 forwards. They're going to be the team that you always wanted.
I appreciate the length, but they
did also add Keontae George.
They need a playmaker. They need a playmaker on that team somewhere. Then they could take a leap. Until then, I would put them in the other territory. I think they're still probably a below 500
They got
team.
better, but they're still
I don't know. I mean, the other thing, though, is the Jazz, like, they were the surprise team. How many games did they win last year? Upper 30s? I think upper 30s. Yeah. They benefited from half a season.
Surprising people?
Well, no, they benefited from half a season of Mike Conley before they traded him.
That's a good point.
And so I think the John Collins trade does beef up their front court, but they got significantly worse after dealing Mike Conley, and they haven't replaced him with anyone who's a reasonable playmaker. So I still just kind of have them in the same tier. I'm not sure if they got better.
How do they guard the Suns That's kind of interesting. So they probably do they put Collins on KD? I don't know. Sorry. No, we don't need to think about that now, but that's going to be fascinating.
Yeah,
I think that the
I don't
idea
think we're going to have to worry about that, to be honest.
This was something that the Cavs did before Lauri Markkanen was traded, and it's just having three massive players on the court at all times. And yes, Collins is not the 7-footer that Evan Mobley is, but having a three that's 7 feet tall is an advantage defensively, even if they're not extra great defenders. Size matters on defense in the NBA. And I think they're going to be pretty fascinating. I would say they got better, and yeah, they're still part of the others of teams, and probably a team that doesn't necessarily want to be great, but it's kind of a nice situation. As we just went through all these Western Conference teams, they could still try and still be a pretty high draft pick here, right? Because this conference is pretty loaded now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I think that's what we're staring down now going into next season.
I don't think a lot of people are super into the 2024 draft class as the idea of it being a very strong draft class. But, on the other hand, kind of scouting at this point, a lot of scouts are full of shit. So we never actually know. And I think the prospect of being able to be like a 35-win team and have the 5th best lottery odds, that's something that could really happen in the NBA this year. And we're in the age of parity. We should celebrate it.
Okay, last thing before we go. What teams got worse? We got the Denver Nuggets,
yes,
who they're still contenders.
You said the Timberwolves?
They just stayed the same.
Okay.
So and that to me is like going backwards, though, right? I mean, if everyone else is improving and you stay the same,
well, that's kind of how I feel about the Kings too.
So the Kings, is that the other team? Anybody else? That's it, right? Everyone else kind of improved. I mean, the Portland Trailblazers, obviously.
Yeah, and the Blazers are the big hit.
Yeah. It's just a kind of a fascinating thing where I think you can make the case that most teams got better and most of them will try to compete.
And just to recap here, so I think we finished, both of us have 5 contenders, if I've been tracking this correctly, but we differ on one of them. Nuggets.
Okay, that's true.
Nuggets, Suns, Lakers,
Suns.
Warriors.
Those are the ones we all have.
And
I have the Grizzlies, you have the Pelicans.
And I put the Pelicans.
Clippers fans are going to hate this podcast.
Yeah.
All right, going to be a fascinating season. Now, we'll see what ends up happening with the combination of the Portland Trailblazers trading Damian Lillard and the Philadelphia 76ers trading James Harden. We don't know if either are going to happen or if they happen soon, but that will shake up the Western Conference in one way or another. And at that point, I think, Sam, you and I got to revisit how we feel about both of those teams. Trailblazers maybe won't change much, but the Clippers might at that point. You got anything else before we go here?
No, I think that's it for this week. It's
went pretty long.
It's officially August, folks. If it's August 1st and you're listening to this, find a way to celebrate optimism season. Remember,
say something optimistic on Twitter or your social media of notes. Whatever you use.
think I'm gonna celebrate. I'm gonna start just posting every day different classic games from like Suns role players like Tony Delk 50 points, Jamal Crawford 51 points. That's how I'm gonna be celebrating optimism, National NBA Optimism Day. We have a federal holiday in July. We have a federal holiday in September. We don't have one in August.
Nothing in August. Yeah.
So write your congressman and ask for it. Ask for them to get it done.
Thanks everyone for listening. We'll be back midweek with the Patreon podcast. If you want to hear that one, patreon.com/thetimeline. Thanks everyone.